Welcome back, everyone. Good evening to you, one and all. You are live, or we are live around the world, and joining me this evening is one of my regular guests, Richard, the wonderful Richard Inman. You got us to yourselves tonight. Big Danny out there in Spain, currently back in the UK. Sends his apologies. He's busy tonight. He's a man with many friends, and he's got to keep them happy. Richard, good evening. How are you, mate?
I'm not bad, Paul. I was just thinking we've had a couple of casualties. Last time there was 4 of us. Now there's only 2. Do you know what I mean, Paul? It's that's an attrition rate there, mate.
I'll tell you what, mate. It's not looking good, is it? Our numbers are dwindling.
Dwindling. Me and you were the last men standing, Paul.
Yeah, exactly. Well, funny you should say that. It is this week. It is the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Arnhem, and just want to mention that tonight. And I'm going to put a little graphic up that sums up the British spirit to get us started on the show tonight. Sums up the British spirit and the never say die attitude towards life. Let's just pop this up. From the Ministry of Defence. Out of ammo. God save the King. Final radio message sent by British airborne forces during the battle for Arnhem Bridge, where almost 2,000 of our troops, along with our Polish allies, were lost and 6,000 were taken prisoner. We on this channel, at least, will always remember. God bless them all.
Just a little aside there, Paul. When it said out of ammo, I did a course when I was in the military with a lad that was in the Scots Guards, and he'd fought on Tumbledown, and he'd PTSD, but he was a really good lad. And he told me that he ran out of ammo. He was in the last phase of the attack. They were going up Tumbledown, and he said he ran out of ammo. He said so he, bayonets fixed. They were just charging with the bayonets fixed on the rifles. So he stabbed an RG with his bayonet, and he said the guy was doing a dead fly on the end of the bayonet, and he panicked because he was only a 17-year-old kid, and he's ragging his rifle about in the guy's chest. He said the bayonet snapped off, so now he's only got his rifle, right, with no bullets and no bayonet. So he carries on to the next trench, beats the next RG to death with his rifle, right, and then his rifle breaks, right. So now he's got nothing. He's in the trench fighting hand to hand with these people. He takes it. This is just to give you an idea of the graphicness of war, because it all sounds very romantic. He takes his helmet off, right, and beats another RG to death with his helmet. That's how close that battle was. And then he just...
Which battle was this, Richard?
That was Tumbledown in the Falklands.
Tumbledown. Right.
That was Tumbledown. So that was the Scots
And he was
Guard.
17.
He was 17. Now, you couldn't serve in Northern Ireland unless you were 18, but for some reason, he ended up fighting in the Falklands as a 17-year-old soldier. Now, you think about that. You think about what most, I'm not saying the guy's name, you think about what most kids are like at 17 now, right? And he was there, and he wasn't a big lad, so he'd have been really skinny at 17, tall, but not big, heavy lad. And he was fighting hand to hand, no bullets, killing people with his bare hands at 17-year-old. And his head was gone, like.
Oh, dear. What a way to start the night off, Richard, blimey. And you're sitting there supping beer.
Dramatic. It's the end of the weekend, Paul.
I was going to tell you the last time I ran out of ammo, but I don't think you really want to hear that.
No, the old Bill might want to hear about it, though, Paul.
Oh, dear. Right, good evening, everyone. Let's get the tone of the show.
You can't get it back on track after that, man.
Oh, mate, where do we start? Right, listen, I'm going to be dead honest with everyone tonight, because this is an adult conversation this evening. Right, settle down, grab yourself a beer, a cup of tea, coffee, whatever you want to grab, right? And you're going to have to bear with us tonight, because this is a topic that even me and Richard are kind of split on to a degree, but I hope we're also an example of that ultimately we're all on the same side. But there is a problem. There's a big problem that's being masked. And I'll have to say, let me just start off here, Richard, and then you can come in and
Yeah.
I watched the Reform UK conference over the last couple of days, and I've got to tell you, I thought it was amazing. I thought the atmosphere was amazing. I thought The speeches were good to a degree. There were a couple of bits I take issue with. I thought Ant Middleton was good. I thought Nigel Farage did well. However, there were 4,000 people in the hall. Richard Tice boasted of 2,500 new members in one day. I can tell you that, maybe I shouldn't, but I'm going to, more than double that number signed up to the pledge in under 24 hours. And I thought it was a success. And all of the people that I know in Reform, they were singing its praises, saying that it was a success. But there's a couple of buts. And this is where we're all going to have to be grown up, because I'm looking at the chat coming in right now, and there's some people saying, I'll never have anything to do with Reform after what they said about Tommy and about us. And then there's another element in the chat that's saying, look, you guys have got to understand that Reform are our only chance. I get that. I get both sides. And I'll tell you which side I'm going to come down a little bit later. But Richard, I know you did a video earlier on that's been smashing it with the views. Let's have your comments on it.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest with you, my issue is, and I've got a lot of stick before for saying things about Nigel and things about Reform. There was one video I did, I lost 100 subs. But the thing is, I'm not monetized anyway, so it doesn't make any odds to me if I lose subs. But obviously, what I don't want to do is I don't want to come on here and cause massive division. But I've got to just tell the truth as I see it, Paul. Do you know what I mean? So again,
well, there's no point in you, Richard. If you're not going to come on and tell the truth, there's no point in you being here, is there?
Exactly. And you know, the way I am, I'm a straight talker. You know, if people don't like what I say, I don't really care, to be honest with you. But what I don't want to do is unnecessarily cause problems. But my take on what's happened over the last couple of weeks, probably since the riots with Reform and Nigel particularly, and again, look. Nigel, let's look at Nigel's positive points before I start digging him out in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so Nigel is a fantastic communicator, no doubt about it whatsoever. The stuff he used to do in the European Union, pure genius, and that was way back. We're going 10, 15 more years ago. He was really giving them a slap across the back of the head that they needed. Brexit wouldn't have happened without Nigel. He took UKIP from really being a sort of, I suppose, in a way, an intellectual think tank about the European Union to actually forcing the Brexit vote. Okay, all brilliant, absolutely superb. Not going to knock him for that. The problem I have is, and this is my perception, and if people think I'm wrong, you're okay to put that in the chat, because that's what it's all about. But I think Nigel is an elitist snob. I don't believe I think his attacks on Tommy and our movement, to a great extent, are driven out of that elitist mentality and not out of any genuine political or ideological differences. Because the reality is, the differences that we have with Reform, it's a cigarette paper. That's the width of the difference.
Let's play devil's advocate here for a minute, because it's only the two of us tonight. Mm-hmm. And we got to have some fireworks, right? So what? Yeah. I get what you're saying. Your detractors would say, if Nigel was to openly come out and support Tommy, he's finished. The media will absolutely obliterate him. What do you say to that?
Well, they do anyway. I mean, you know, the reality is that James O'Brien called the riots the Farage riots. Hope Not Hates had Farage in their sights forever. In fact, I mean, there was a legal action between Farage and Hope Not Hate, and I can't remember the details, or I can't remember who won. But the same people that are attacking Nigel are attacking us. Now, I think, and I'm just being honest, and this isn't through me being bitter against Nigel, because I admire Nigel. I admire the way he can communicate and the way he can speak. Because as you know, I'm not averse to a bit of public speaking myself. So the way Nigel can do it, I know he's good, right? No, and he's a good politician and he's clever. But, and this is the but, when it comes to the issue of what you might call the Tommy movement, right? And he's got to, I think Nigel's got to realise the popularity that Tommy has in the country.
I think that's the problem. Go on, carry on.
Well, there could be a bit of sort of, you know, I was going to say something swinging there, but I'm not saying it on the channel. But you know what I mean? A bit of, you know, I'm bigger than you and that sort of thing going on, possibly. But I don't think that's really it. I think he is afraid of talking about the massive elephant in the room, and I'm not going to go into that on your channel, Paul, because again, I'm well aware of preserving your channel, but you know what I'm talking about. There is a massive problem that we're facing in the country that Tommy addresses extremely articulately and very, very well, that nobody else does because they're all too afraid and too scared because most of them are cowards. And I think Nigel has a fear of that. I've seen him when he does address that, he doesn't address it fully or comprehensively. He skirts around the issue. And
so could that be for and again, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm not necessarily, I'll tell you what I think after.
Yeah.
But I've got to ask you the questions. Could that be because he knows that to win a war, you have to win a lot of smaller battles. And to get there, to get to the point where he wants to be, he has to be selective about what he says, who he supports, who he criticises, just like Keir Starmer, in the respect that Keir Starmer portrayed himself as being a bit of a cuddly bear before the election. And now he's in power, is refeeling himself to be a grizzly bear. Could it be that Nigel is playing it crafty? Is he playing it clever?
Well, here's the thing. And this is the reality of the situation. Now, no matter what people, you know, think about reform and however great they think reform is and however great they think Nigel is, before the election, Paul, me, you, Tommy, Carl Benjamin, Lawrence Fox, Maya Tusi, I think Calvin did as well. I think we all said, I think everybody said, right, let's back reform. Is that correct? We all, and certain, not promises, but there was a nudge, wink, wink. You look after us, we'll look after you. Am I right?
Yeah.
Is that fair enough to say? And that's not a secret. So there was this sort of backwards and forth between reform and certain intermediaries, and that happened. We literally all of them. Look, my channel's minuscule compared to a lot of the other guys.
We kept our word.
We kept our word, and we said, and I did it under, if you remember, Paul, I did it under, I was very reluctant to do it, you know, and I tried to put the caveats in and talk to people about tactical voting and about the way the electoral system works. And I went into a lot of detail about why I wish reform had a better plan before the election. Okay. So I'd done a lot of videos on that, and it cost me quite a lot in terms of people, you know, falling out with me over it because they were all backing reform. And again, I'm not going to fall out with someone over what political party they support. Even if it was a Labour person I'm talking to, I'm not going to fall out with them because they're a Labour person. So, you know, if I criticise Labour, I wouldn't like to think I'm fighting Labour people, same as with any party, right? But okay, I get all that. But the reality is that there was no reciprocation after what we did. After actually, I think if I remember rightly, on the 1st of June, I think we told people from the platform to vote reform. Yeah. I think I'm right in saying that, Paul. I think so. I think Tommy did. I know Tommy did lots of videos telling people to vote reform, and I did videos telling people to vote reform, and you did. And instead of there being any reciprocation, once the riots started, the first video Nigel made after the riots, he threw Tommy under the bus. And actually, if the truth about Nigel is told, about Nigel did more to stoke tension than Tommy did, because Nigel put out a video saying that was this, he just, and to be fair, Nigel didn't do that much either, but he just said, was this guy on a watch list? Tommy didn't even mention that tweet, because until it's the way Tommy does things, and of course, when you're doing hundreds of tweets or thousands of tweets a year, you're going to get some wrong. But the way Tommy does things, he has a team that do fact check. If they get it wrong, they'll put out public apology saying they got it wrong. So actually, Nigel had said something more damaging than Tommy had said.
Yeah.
And yet, when he was accused, instead of putting his hands up and saying, "Yeah, I got it wrong on that tweet," he threw Tommy under the bus. Now that's not being tactical. That's being cowardly. I'm sorry. That's just the way.
Well, it's funny that I mean, look, they had Ant Middleton talking about military tactics and you know, how he would unite the UK and make us stronger. And I thought it was a great speech, to be fair. But the one thing that the army would look at, I would think, and you're a former army man, is they'd look at their assets. And this movement, whether Reform like it or not, this movement, including Tommy, including everyone that supports him, including our groups and all the other YouTubers, we are an asset if they choose to use it. Now, before I go any further, this is not absolutely a knocking Reform stream tonight. No. If there was a general election tomorrow, I'd be voting for him. Richard may not be. I would. Because right now, I still see them as our best chance of gaining power. However, that does not mean that I think they're perfect. And I'm going to say this right now. If Nigel Farage wants to win the next election, he simply has to come to terms with who his core voters are, who they support, their beliefs, their real concerns, and the real world, because he is not going to win the next general election with disillusioned Tory voters who may well be tempted back to the Tory party by Jenrick, or whatever. Is it Jenrick? It is Jenrick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who is saying the right things. Don't believe a word of it, by the way.
I'll come back on Jenrick in a minute.
Don't believe a goddamn word of it, right? Any disillusioned Tories out there, we've seen how the Tories lie. The Tory party needs to close down and give its support to a political party that will actually use the people's votes properly. But that's another story. But Nigel will not win an election on the back of disillusioned Tories who will be split at the next general election when they lose their nerve, when the time comes to put the cross in the box, and the few Labour voters who have come over. He needs a patriotic vote. Nigel, my friend, listen, we're on the same side. I don't agree with everything you say. I don't particularly admire the way in which you've gone about certain things, but you remain, in many ways, I believe, our best bet. I know, Richard, you probably don't agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, what I did after what happened after the election and the way that the behaviour that happened, I joined UKIP. So I've rejoined UKIP. So I've got skin in the game on the UKIP side. So I'm not gonna come in on this channel and say I'm impartial and I'm agnostic. And again, people say you're crazy joining UKIP. Well, you know, Reform was not a major threat until Nigel joined. And you know, I think this is the way. This is my analysis of it, right? What we've got to do is find a way of uniting the right. But at the minute, we are not. We have been told in no one's. We've got to understand.
We are nowhere near it. Nowhere near it.
Well, I want people to realise. People blame me for the split. I'm not. If Nigel came over to our side tomorrow, shook Tommy's hand, I know for a fact Tommy would reciprocate 1,000,000%, right? And because that's the way Tommy is. He's an extremely gracious guy. And he's going to reciprocate if Nigel comes over to him, because he's been dug out by people left, right, and centre unjustly. And the more I look at Tommy and the way he's been treated, the more I'm going, even from a humanitarian point of view, Nigel should be saying, this guy has been pushed to his absolute limit. Instead of digging him out and being a coward, he should stand up and say, do you know what? Let's make friends and let's. Now, that's my problem, Paul. I don't have a problem with Reform. I have a problem with Reform having a problem with me. I'll give you an example, right? I've no criminal record. I've never been convicted of any criminal offence. I joined a party called For Britain. You know, Anne-Marie asked me. I was like, oh, okay. Well, you know, eventually I kind of joined. She folded the party 6 months later. But that's another story. But so I joined For Britain. For Britain, which had almost exactly the same policies as Reform and UKIP do. For Britain is on the prescribed list of parties as an extremist party within Nigel's rule book. Anybody that was in For Britain cannot join Reform. So I couldn't join if I wanted to. So I can't stand with Nigel because I want to be in a political party that actually respects me and will allow me to join. And that's why I've rejoined UKIP. That's a massive thing, Paul. And it's an insult to me. I'm a veteran. I've never been convicted of any offences. If people think I'm racist, I worked for 10 years in Sierra Leone for a charity, put thousands of pounds of my own money in there. And what Nigel is saying by default is saying, no, you're wrong. And you were part of For Britain, so that makes you racist. It's nonsense. And it's wrong. And what this is doing, it's absolutely dividing the right. And it's not us that are dividing it, Paul. It's him and his lackeys in the higher echelons of reform. And that's the truth of the matter. And I know it's a hard truth to hear, but that's exactly the facts. And if you were, anybody else that was in those parties, if you're watching this chat and you're any of those parties, you can't join reform. You're not allowed to.
This is what reform has to understand. And for obvious reasons, I am not going to name these people because they are my friends. I have people within reform right now messaging me, telling me they're unhappy, telling me that people are being sacked from within reform because of their support for our group and for Tommy. And let me make it clear, I'm not part of anyone's group. I'm part of me. Right? I'm part of the people. Nobody owns me. Nobody tells me what to do, what to say, what to feel. I don't work for anyone. I say as I feel. But my reform friends that are inside reform, I mean proper inside, are saying they're not happy, right? But they're also telling me they had a wonderful weekend and it was an amazing atmosphere. Gavin says only reform can dislodge Labour. This is the thing, Gavin. I agree with you, but trust me when I tell you, they will not until they come to terms with who their supporters are. And Nigel needs to understand two things. And I'm not trying to tell one man like Nigel how to suck eggs, right? But this is my belief as someone that's been around people all my life. He needs to drop the snobbery when it comes to the working class. He needs to understand who his supporters are and where they come from. And he doesn't have to shake hands or publicly back anyone. He needs to keep his mouth closed and covertly or privately reach out a hand of mutual respect. Job done. He finds himself with what? 2 to 5 million new loyal supporters. Now, right now, those people are supporters. They're not loyal supporters. That's my belief. Let me just read one or two of these out. Paul Hill is a new member. Thank you very much. Cy Harris. To quote Wolfie Smith, power to the people. Absolutely. David Crosby, thank you. Boys used to love Farage until he kept throwing true heroes under a bus. He thinks he is the one and only. Onward soldiers, lookalikes, Paul, Michael Caine, Richard, Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson, that's not bad, mate. That's not bad. Rob, thank you. When are reform going to grow up and unite? Look, this is the thing, and I understand the frustration. There's so much willingness to support reform out there. They have an army of 20, 30, 40, 100,000 people that will go out and campaign for them, leaflet for them, boots on the ground. They'll get on their hands and knees and help this party win the next general election. There's one thing stopping them from doing it. And Nigel needs to sort that problem out for his own sake and for... Look, we had 707 is the lowest count that I've got. Other figures say over 800. But at least 707 new arrivals yesterday, bringing the total to more than 25,000 this year alone. 25,000 people that need homes, doctor surgeries, a bed, money, income. It can't go on. We need leaders to step forward and tell it as it is. Yes, Nigel may well be our best bet. But right now, I think yesterday the conference was great, but it was a bit smoke and mirrors. A bit smoke and mirrors for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue is we need to have this discussion now.
Exactly.
We need to have a frank discussion. And again, I'm looking at some of the comments. There's all sorts of stuff going on in there, and I appreciate all the comments because people are taking the time to actually do it. But the reality is that we need to thrash this out, because there is only, I mean, if we don't have a political solution and we don't get rid of Labour at the next election, we are in real trouble. If by default we get another Labour government. So what we need, and it's my friend Don from America, Don Keith says you have to make it too big to rig. So in other words, you have to have such a massive majority that they cannot steal the election, that you can't have a situation where, and let's get it right. I mean, I was listening to Lawrence Fox and Calvin Robinson talking about this, and Lawrence said, actually, we can thank Reform for the massive Labour majority, and to a certain extent, that's absolutely true. You can thank the Conservative Party for it as well, and you can thank low voter turnout and lots of other issues. But it is a massive part of the reason that we've got a massive Labour majority.
I blame the Tories, though, mate. I mean, they were so pony.
But it's both, Paul. It's both, because there was no voter management with Reform whatsoever. It was just vote Reform. But you know yourself, Paul, there was a lot of candidates that didn't have anyone canvassing their areas. There was no battle plan. It was just Nigel woke up on the 3rd of June after seeing our massive demo and said, "I'm going to stand." So these are things, and I know people think I am negative and all this, that, and the other. Well, I'm actually not. If anyone knows me, I'm not negative. I'm very positive. And what I'm trying to say is, let's find a solution to this, because what we've got at the minute, Reform in its current guise, doesn't matter how much voter management they do, how many people they get out on the pavement, they will not win the general election in 5 years' time unless they actually act on these things that we're talking about. Because with the British working class with them, they have a chance of winning. Without the British working class, they've no chance of winning.
Well, I'll show you, Richard, I'll show you exactly why I think you're right. Because what's going to happen is this. Labour MP calls for coordinated sabotage to block nostalgic Reform UK and far-right Farage at all costs. At all costs. Now, what that will mean is uniting with the Green Party. They'll get as many Lib Dems on board. They'll get Uncle Tom Cobley and all on board to stop Reform. Now, if Reform aren't prepared to do the same, let's look at that again. At all costs.
Yeah.
And Nigel must be looking at it at the same. At all costs.
Absolutely.
We must unite.
This is the Battle of Britain. And you don't win the Battle of Britain by dividing your army. And like I say, I've joined UKIP, and I'm gonna throw myself, as much as doing other things, into UKIP, and until such time as they let me down. If the policies aren't what we believe are the right policies. But if the way we can do this, the way we can put pressure, because we need to put pressure on Farage very, very quickly. And the way we put pressure on Farage is by growing UKIP very quickly and turning UKIP into a little, what it is at the minute, which is just a rump, turning it into the People's Army again. Because, of course, UKIP was the People's Army, not Reform. So the reality is that can be done if certain personalities come into UKIP, right? And I think Nigel's got to realise that.
Sorry, I've just got to stop you there for a second. There's a couple of messages that I really want to read. Nicola says, please give it time, guys. Nicola, we have tried. And the next comment is actually going to prompt me into speaking about something I didn't want to speak about. Andrew says, F off with the Farage bashing FFS. Right, Andy. So this is where I'm at with that. You touched on it earlier on, but what the hell? Let's tell the truth. Let's have it out. Let's Richard, you tell the world, you tell Andy, who, by the way, Andy, I'm not having to dig at you, mate. I understand where you're coming from. But there's more to this than meets the eye. Tell the viewers precisely what took place before the general election, Richard.
Well, okay. Basically,
and I don't care what you tell them.
No. Okay. Well, what we did was we got together as a group and said, okay, let's make representations to reform that we did through an intermediary. I'm not going to name the intermediary. And that intermediary came back to us and said, if you back reform, they will look very favorably on your movement after the election. Now, we were told, and I believe the person, because the person that told me is of very high integrity, we were told that the leadership of reform knew what we were doing and knew that we were deliberately going to, we want to very deliberately stand.
Richard, it goes further than that with the video that they asked someone to make.
I can't remember, Paul. Just I can't remember that, mate.
Well,
just
we was asked if a certain person would make a video.
Oh yeah,
supporting reform.
Yeah, Tommy.
Tell the story.
Yeah. They said if Tommy made a video supporting reform, then basically they would look at what was happening and they would, what was the word? They would respond very favorably to that video. That was what the terminology they used. Very clever terminology, incidentally. But they would respond favorably. Now, incidentally, when Tommy made that video, he didn't make it to get any position in reform. He made it out of goodwill to actually get reform a good vote in the election, and then hopefully they would reciprocate and say, right, guys, you can all now join reform. So we'd have, listen, let's get it right, Paul. If Farage and Tice and that other fella, Yusuf, decided to invite Tommy to join the party, right? That party's membership would be boosted by 30, 40,000 overnight. Simple.
Yeah, but on the other side to that, this is where me and you differ slightly. 4,296 people watching, guys. Don't forget to give me the upvote, please. I really would appreciate it. Yes, I agree. He would get a lot more support. However, I think he would also lose potentially a lot of Middle England. And I think Tommy knows that. I think Tommy recognises that. Look, the ideal way out of this for me.
I actually disagree with that, Paul. I think we're way past that. I think, look, I'm privy to the conversations that Tommy has with a lot of people. He obviously doesn't give it any confidential stuff away, but he tells me who he's talking to, right? And he's talking to doctors, he's talking to school teachers, he's talking to solicitors, people, middle-class people. Now, they will not put their head above the parapet and say they support Tommy because it'll cost them massively, right? But some of them are actually coming to our events, especially the retired ones. If you go to our events, the amount of middle-class retired people that you will find at those events is off the chart, right? And the ones that are traveling, a lot of women, a lot of middle-aged women, love Tommy, they support Tommy. So let's get away from this nonsense that the only people that support Tommy are, as Nigel so eloquently described us at one point, skinhead tattooed thugs. That's a nonsense. I'm not a tattooed thug, right? I don't have any tattoos for one. But the reality is, the reality is that the vast majority of Tommy supporters do not fit that description.
No, look, Richard, I know that. I know that. You know that. But does Granny Smith and her husband at number 50, do they know that? Now, what I'm saying is, I do get that along with Tommy comes some toxicity. Tommy knows that himself. He's not stupid. He's a sensible man.
Of course.
Now, what I'm saying is that look, if I was friends with Nigel and he came up to me tomorrow and said, right, Paul, what do you think I should do? Shall I be on the front page of the Daily Mail tomorrow, shaking Tommy's hand with my arm around him saying, welcome to reform? Honestly, my answer to that would be, it's probably not the best optics, right? But what you do need to do, meet the man for yourself. Make up your own mind. Listen to what he has to say. Look at his story. Look at what they've done to him. Look at what they keep doing to him. Back the guy up when he's in a corner and keep your mouth closed when it comes to knocking him.
Now, okay. I mean, I think there's another thing, and there's another.
Me and Rich are going to end up falling out here.
No, not at all. No. Listen, no, I love having a debate. I love having a good argument. Listen, especially when I've had a beer. I love arguing when I've had a beer. But we're not arguing. We're just discussing it. So this is where I look at it. And this is not. You see, the problem is what Farage is looking at. He's looking at what his advisors are telling him, and this, that, and the other. Do you know what the British public are looking at? The decent British public, the right-thinking British public, are looking at Tommy and going, That man is about to go to prison for telling the truth. Let's just get it right. He's going to prison for publishing. If you watch the film, you can't dispute what's in the film because it's straight from the people's mouths that were basically being gagged, right? So Tommy is facing a very severe prison sentence, right? The stress that Tommy must be under is off the chart. Now, from a humanitarian point of view, if the leadership of Reform had anything about them, they would say, do you know what? See, if he goes to prison, we're going to ask questions in the House. We're going to put questions down. And I've asked my local MP to do it. My local MP said he will do it. And also a peer of the realm has said that they're going to ask questions on Tommy's behalf. What Reform should be doing, instead of digging Tommy out, they should be standing up in Parliament saying, what measures is the Justice Minister and the Prisons Minister going to take to ensure the mental and physical safety of Stephen Yaxley Lennon in the event of him going to prison on the 28th of October? That's the question that they should be asking. Because I can tell you something now. See if something happens to Tommy in prison. Then all bets are off in this country. I don't know how that's going to play out if something bad happens to Tommy. And these are real questions. So all this flowery stuff, Tice with his plummy accent criticizing Tommy, the guy's probably never even had a schoolyard fight, for goodness sake.
Yeah, we've had it today. We've had it today, haven't we? They talked about being hijacked by anyone. I mean, who is he talking about? Who is he talking about? Richard Tice today said on I think it was on Dan Watton's show.
He mentioned Tommy by name.
I've actually got it. Let's have a little look. I've actually got it here somewhere. Let me get this up. If I can find it. Hold on a second. Is this it? Yeah, Dan Watton. We want nothing to do with Tommy. We want to aim to be a credible challenger to the next governing party. We're not going to be hijacked by anyone. I mean, that is not the right thing to be saying.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Well, I think that the reality of this, Paul, is, and I'm angry I'm angry for several reasons, right? I'm angry because Tommy's a personal friend of mine, and I know something of what he suffered, right? I don't know fully what he suffered, but I know something of what he suffered, right? And I wouldn't wish that on anybody, right? Especially not somebody that could be an ally. Now, if you're on the left, I'm sure the left would love to see us all locked up and the key thrown away. But so that's the first point. The second point is that Tommy would be an absolute asset to them. They don't realize it because he would bring massive support from the British working class. Because I would say probably 80% of men under 60 that are British working class would support Tommy. I don't think that would be far away from the from the truth. They might not say it openly, but I know when people that know that I'm associated with Tommy, they're always coming up to me asking about how is he, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
So I know there's massive support in the country right the way. I mean, I'm in Northern Ireland, I'm in the middle of nowhere, but there's still massive support right the way across the country for Tommy. Now, the downside for Reform doing what they're doing, they are going to lose all of those votes. And do
you know what I think though, Richard? Sorry, do you know what I think? Do you know what I think the situation is? I think that they know that they probably wouldn't lose all those votes. They'd lose some of them, but when push comes to shove, people feel there's no other option, and this is why the pledge is so important.
I agree.
We must make sure,
and UKIP.
We must make sure that whoever we take the pledge to, with 500,000, 1 million people plus signed up to it, 5 million by the next general election, maybe more. I said it at the last event. We must become the dog wagging the tail. And we can only do that with sheer weight of numbers. And that can only be done through the pledge, in my humble opinion. Now, again, I go back to saying what I said earlier on. This is not absolutely, I know it might sound like it to some people, this is most definitely not a Reform bashing live stream tonight. It's actually a Reform loving. We're trying to help them. We're trying to make them see the light. We're trying to make them see reason.
Do you know what I would like? Do you know what I'd like to see, Paul? Right, I'd like to see a situation where Reform, UKIP, possibly the SDP. I wouldn't mess about with any of the parties. Reform, UKIP, SDP come together amalgamate and actually get rid of that stupid rule that Farage has got about people that's been in for Britain or whatever not being able to join the party, because there's still a good solid base in UKIP. It just needs it energized again. SDP, there's some great people in the SDP, Rod Little and people like that. So if a coalition was formed from those three parties with, let's say that for want of a better word, we'll call it the Tommy movement, even though it isn't the Tommy movement, it's the Unite the Kingdom movement, with all of those people dragged into that, and everyone showing a bit of grace and a bit of humility and saying, okay, well, maybe he's got it wrong. And look, see, if I've known Tommy for, since 2017, the more I get to know him, the more I like him. That's just, so that to me speaks volumes, right? Is he perfect? No, he's not perfect. He's got lots of character flaws, just like me and just like you, Paul. You know what I mean? He's a bloke. He's a man. He's got character flaws. End of, right? Same as any other person has. So I think this hostility towards anybody that is on our side of the fence in terms of politics,
crazy.
It's crazy because we believe the same things. Oh, look, if you know yourself, Paul, how virulently antagonistic I am to ethno-nationalism, to the Nazis, to the goose steppers, and I've been in confrontations with them on the street. Tommy's been in confrontations, probably more confrontations than Farage has ever been in with them, right?
Oh, 100%, 100%.
Now we have always, and I've spoken.
Sorry, Richard. When was the last time the real far right put it on Nigel Farage?
Exactly. So that's why I'm irate and I'm passionate. I'm not saying that the Reform Party is never going to be the answer, but in its current form, it can't work.
But this is the thing. This is what worries me, Richard.
They're closing themselves down. They're becoming a middle-class party now. Yeah, the reality is
exactly. Yeah. Let me just come in a minute. This is exactly. I mean, you're talking about UKIP. You're talking about the SDP. You're talking about what we need to be one. Now, here's a great super chat. Thank you very much, Steve. I was there, spoke to loads. None have heard of the pledge or the 26th, and you know why? Because that hall was mostly made up with fed-up middle-class Tories, and he will not win the next general election with their votes.
Well, think about this, Paul. He was boasting, I've got 4,000 people from this hall. We had 100,000 people on the 27th of July.
Yeah, exactly. Big deal, yeah.
Actually, we didn't just fill Trafalgar Square. We filled half the Strand, and we filled all the roads surrounding Trafalgar Square. Now, that was massive. And that was done with a very minimal social media footprint. No money for publicity. There was no paid publicity on that at all. Everything that we did was completely organic. And we had 100,000 people standing in Trafalgar Square for 4 hours, watching films, listening, So the point I'm making is Farage is missing out on that by his actions. And that's why I'm so frustrated. And people are digging me out in the comments. I don't care. I know what I'm saying is right. I just don't care if people are digging me out, because this needs to be sorted out. And I think Reform, UKIP, SDP, get them all together. Get people that support Tommy in, get Tommy in, get the Unite the Kingdom people in, get every other group, get the Together Declaration in, get everyone together to get rid of these rats that have destroyed these traitors that have destroyed our country.
Yeah, and that's right. All this infighting is absolutely no good at all. Rob Quince, thank you, Rob.
The very serious question we've got to ask is, what is Nigel's motivation in doing this?
Spot on. Rob says, spot on. He's worried Tommy is bigger than him instead of coming together and getting our beautiful country back. I think there is an element to that, I have to say. My good friend out in the States, Ali Reza. Ali, hope you're well, my friend. Nigel might be right about most things, but he is dangerously approaching cult of Nigel levels, not listening to legitimate skepticism. Dangerous. Great message. And again, I'll say it again. Sorry, mate. The best move that he could do is bring Ben Habib back into the fold. Bring Ben Habib back into the fold. Let Ben deal with us. Let Ben deal with the people, because I feel Ben is more a man of the people. My own view. I don't know the guy, but what I can say is I think I can tell what he's like.
Yeah.
And I would love to see Ben dealing with the public. Let Nigel deal with the politicians. Let Ben deal with the public. That is the dream ticket and a guaranteed winning formula. Nigel, get Ben back on board.
Well, I mean, yeah, I won't hold my breath on that, but I was actually going to mention Ben. I mean, when you look at the way Ben's been treated, it's absolutely appalling. You know, and again, a good man been literally cast aside.
A very, very, very good man.
A very intelligent man, a very good man, a man who had actually committed a lot of his time and no doubt his well, certainly time's money with all of us, right? And Ben's a very successful businessman, and for him to be cast aside in the way he did, it's just ridiculous. And that's my point, you know. And I could say a lot more about it, Paul, but what I don't want to do is put people on a negative.
Yeah, no, neither do we. No, we're talking amongst friends.
Yeah, my point is this, right? That reform could work if it did the right thing, right? If reform did the right thing, but I am so skeptical. I'm so skeptical because I've seen it before. I've seen it happen 3 or 4 times. Happened with UKIP, where Nigel didn't like the direction it was going and deliberately buried UKIP. That's truth, right? Brexit Party, exactly the same thing. Folded it and let the Tories win the election. And so I think if I was been skeptical without any evidence or without any cause, people could say, look, I don't dislike Nigel Farage. I just don't like the way he operates and the way he's disrespecting vast swathes of his support base. I think it's insane. I think it's political suicide. And, you know, so in a way, like you said, Paul, we're actually saying, don't be like this. And my skin in the game is Tommy's a friend of mine. He's facing some very, very serious issues. And the last thing he needs right now is political leaders, MPs. Let's get it right. These guys are MPs that have clout turning on him and stabbing in the back because they're just showing that they're just the establishment. Yeah. I'm sorry, that's the way I feel about it. I'd love to know what Lee Anderson's position is on Tommy Robinson because he doesn't say anything about him.
He doesn't. Well, that's the right attitude. Yeah, that is exactly the right thing to do. Lee keeps his mouth shut, and that is the right thing to do. I would
love to know what he really thinks because I bet you if you dug down with Lee, because he's one of us,
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. No doubt. I can't speak for Lee, and neither can you, but I don't doubt Lee's loyalty.
Paul, me and you were old enough to remember Nelson Mandela coming out of prison, right? And remember the world's media outside the prison. Now, obviously, the world's media is controlled by absolute scumbags now. So no doubt the world's media are not going to be outside the prison when Tommy comes out. However, some of them might be. And that will be an iconic moment when he comes out of prison, especially when people realize how unjustly he's been treated by the state. That will be an iconic moment. And instead of Farage being able to say, there's our man coming out of jail after being a political prisoner for 2 years or whatever it is, Farage is going to have a very, very red face because what happened to Mandela after he came out of prison? He became a statesman, right? And that's the position that Tommy could be in. Tommy is extremely intelligent. He's extremely articulate. Does he get things wrong sometimes? Yes, like us all. But he is extremely smart. And by the way, Mandela was a terrorist. Tommy's not a terrorist. And this is the irony of all this. You know, there's terrorists sitting in government in Northern Ireland that aren't banned from joining Reform, that could leave government in Northern Ireland, actually join the Reform Party. And yet a man that's never, you know, done anything violent in the whole of his activism, and in fact has done the opposite, has always de-escalated, got rid of the far right, you know, stood for multiculturalism, Tommy's very liberal in his views. It's a nonsense what these people are doing to him. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Let me read this out. This is interesting. Defender 1968. Appreciate that, mate. Thank you. The left only have one choice, and that's Labour. We have 3 choices. Don't quite agree with that, and I'll tell you why in a sec. We have 3 choices: Tory, Reform, and UKIP. Don't split our vote. I agree with that. Reform is our only choice. I tend to agree with that. Farage has the charisma and he has the public backing. Hold your nose and back Reform. Now, I'll agree with most of that. The only thing that I will say is that Labour, as we saw from that image that I put up earlier on, they will work with anyone that can put down anyone that's remotely to the right of the Lib Dems. And they will do that.
And the thing about this is, right, here's the thing about this. The reality is this is too big not to be passionate about, right? So I appreciate people that are digging me out in the comments because they're passionate about reform. I appreciate that because you're doing it because
I do.
You believe in your heart that reform's the answer. Now I take the opposite opinion, that reform in its current form is rigged for failure. That's my opinion on it, okay? And I am also passionate and also want to have unity on the right. I want to have all the good people on the right. And there are some wrong ones. There are some wrong ones out there. I'm not going to name them because I'm not going to do what Farage does and dig people out, but there's people I could dig out. But the reality is SDP, UKIP, reform, if they made a major move together and amalgamated and brought our movement into the fold, they would have an unstoppable force. Now, let's put all that to one side, Paul. Let's talk about the pledge, okay? Because this is where the pledge really comes in, okay? I could be wrong about reform. Right?
One sec, mate. Hold on, Danny just wants to pop in. Danny, can you hear us? Danny?
Sorry, mate. I apologise to everyone tonight for letting you down. I'm out for a few beers, as you can see, with me pals.
There you go.
And me dad.
Hey.
Hi, Danny's dad.
Apologies, mate. And I'm not going to stay because I've had a couple of beers, so I'm going to leave it at that. How are you, Rich? You all right?
I'm having a couple of beers as well, mate.
We're just putting the world to rights, Danny. All the best, mate.
It's been a spicy one,
I'll catch up
Danny.
with you tomorrow.
See you later, mate. Take care. Cheers, Danny.
Bye.
Go on, Richard. Carry on,
anyway,
mate.
Getting back to my train of thought. This is where the pledge comes in, right? Because I could be wrong in my analysis of reform. Right? I could be totally wrong. I could be reading it all wrong. I'm 100% convinced I'm not. But then again, I've been wrong on other things before. So, you know, it's human to err, isn't it? But here's the thing. The pledge is a different kettle of fish.
Absolutely.
Because if we get, I think we can get 10 million people to sign the pledge before the next election, right? That is massive. And because the pledge is so reasonable that no right-thinking person would refuse to sign the pledge. If you're a right-thinking person, you will sign the pledge because it is so reasonable. It's so centrist. It's designed to keep extremists out of all colours and shades. When I say colours, I'm not on about physical colour. I'm about rosette. It's designed to keep the extremists out of politics. That's the idea of the pledge. If you read it, it's very,
from both sides,
from the right and from the far right and the far left. That's what you can guarantee. If you took the pledge to someone in Patriotic Alternative, they would rip it up in front of you. Same as if you took it to someone in the Socialist Workers' Party or one of the Islamist groups, they would rip it up and just ignore you. That's the whole point of it. It's about bringing people together, unifying the country under British values. Okay, now if we get 10 million people signing that document before the next election, we can then go to reform and say, okay, let's put all our differences aside.
We could go to the Tories. We can go anywhere.
We can go any political party, and we should go to them all, right? Okay, I'm a member of UKIP, but that doesn't mean I will be party political when it comes to the pledge. The pledge is something totally separate, you know. And if it came to the situation where someone said, well, you can either be in the pledge or you can be in UKIP, I'd have to just say, well, I'm going to, you know, put all my efforts into doing the pledge.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that document has the power to save our country because it takes, do you know what it does, Paul? It takes the personalities out. So it takes Richard with his big mouth and his big ego out of the picture. It takes Farage with his big mouth and his big ego out of the picture. And it says, do you know what? We can all sit down together. And if we agree on this and we believe this document is going to save our country, we can unite around that. And that's why it's such
leaders unite. And Nigel, you know, I always say this, if you get to watch this, Nigel, leaders unite us all. Now, Richard, I'm going to move on for a minute because earlier on I released a telephone number on the community tab, and also it's in the video description below. If you want to send your WhatsApp messages to us now, you can do. However, I cannot answer the WhatsApp messages. In fact, I don't even get them. Someone else gets them and they forward them to me. The only ones that I'm really looking for, to be honest with you, we want your video and your audio WhatsApp messages that we can play during the show. And I'm going to give you an example right now.
Hello, Paul. It's Johnny Crew here, mate. Fellow patriot. Signed the pledge. Doing some security work for Tommy and that on the 26th. And I think my point at the minute is even though it's a bit of a struggle for us all, you know, it's worrying, there is hope, you know, that people have already woken up and the numbers are growing. So, you know, it's early days for us, but I've got every faith in us all to unite, and I do believe in a couple of years' time, you know, we would have made massive steps in just regaining some kind of just an old culture, you know, and just the way I think we've nipped it just in the bud in the nick of time, Paul, if I'm honest. Hello, Paul. It's Johnny Crew here, mate.
The next one.
Hello, Paul. My name is Ian Smith. I'm 37 from Birkenhead. And what I wanted to get off my chest was, I've tried to ring Talk Radio. I got through to the producer part, and she said she was going to get me on to Jeremy. It was on hold for about an hour. And I think what I had to say is something that should be being asked in the mainstream media, what politicians should be saying it every day. It's something that seems to just not be said, and it's grinding my gears loads. What happened to detention centres, immigration centres, where we detain illegal immigrants until processed and then returned to sender? Because if me or you overstep our mark in a foreign country, enter illegally, visa runs out, Thailand, USA, many other countries, we get locked up in horrendous conditions alongside criminals until processed and sent back to England. Why is our country the only country that allows foreign bottom feeders to come, harass our women, attack our children, and nothing's done about it? I've read into all the agendas, like Agenda 2030 and all that, so I do think it's being done by design. They're trying to destroy the nation state, criticise anyone that's a patriot, demonise the national anthem, any songs like Rule Britannia. My view is it's being done by design, but I think this should be being said daily by mainstream politicians and news outlets. Yeah, thank you, mate. Appreciate everything you do as well. I watch it every day.
Brilliant.
Hi,
One last
Paul.
one.
It's Claire Bear here, or Claire. I'm just thinking, with Hugh Edwards now not being put behind bars, it also now allows him to have access to the internet. And it doesn't really help women and children knowing that this could now hinder into them telling the truth. I just don't really understand why he should not have been told not he couldn't use the internet as well. Just a question.
What a good point that is. Why is he? I mean, was there no restrictions on his internet access? Don't know.
No. Just a point, and those are very good calls, by the way, Paul. But just a point on the pledge. Since we've been on, we've had 1,000 sign-ups since we've been on. Just check that. 1,000 sign-ups. So, guys, if you're wondering about whether you're going to sign the pledge or not, dive onto the site, and it takes literally 10 seconds to sign it.
And guys, I will say this: if you're a Reform supporter, it's more vital than ever that you sign the pledge, because we want to work with Reform. We want Reform, or I want Reform. I can't speak for Richard. I want Reform to storm to victory at the next general election, but I want them to represent us, all of us, not just disillusioned middle class, middle England Tories that have deserted the Conservative Party because they've realised what a bunch of traitors they are. There's 4,636 people currently watching this live stream now. Please sign the pledge and don't forget to upvote this video as well. Richard, I want to show these because we've had a couple of people set in little videos as well. Now, guys, this is what I'm trying to build for the future.
The second part of what I'm saying there was actually in the papers. I can't find it anymore, but people that can do extensive lists or search can find that for you. So that's where it's come from. It's come from that Gordon Brown had to give a loan, had to get money from the Saudi Arabians. And once the Saudi Arabians were coming in, paying that, basically they were at the behest of whatever laws and rules and regulations that would exist in a Middle East country. Simple as that. I contacted you a while ago about an idea I had. I don't know how daft it is or good it is, but it's about probably trying to, when you have marches over, about bringing groups of Irish people from here over and vice versa from Britain to go into Ireland to swell the numbers. Because there's a lot of Irish in Britain that I'm probably not happy with this, but I don't really see anybody reaching out to them and trying to get them on board. Maybe they are, just that I haven't seen it. So that's where I'm coming from. That's the idea. I hope it helps you. I want to see you succeed. I love Britain. I love my time there. It was very, very, very good to me. I had a fantastic time there. The majority of my friends are British compared to being Irish because I lived there. I worked on building sites and so on, even though I did athletics. That's it. I hope this helps you some bit, and keep in touch if you can. If you can't, I understand you're very busy. God bless and take care.
I mean, I haven't heard of that, about Gordon Brown and the Saudi Arabians. I mean, I don't know what to make of that. But look, I think the idea about getting people over to Ireland and from Ireland to England is a great idea, obviously, as long as it's all done properly and peacefully.
Yeah. I mean, I'm working on something, putting a little media team together across here in Northern Ireland that can go right the way throughout the whole of the country, north and south. So we're going to be looking at that in the next. In fact, I'm going to meet a couple of guys tomorrow night about that. So just a point on what the gentleman said. Again, I haven't heard, what he said there. What is a fact is that when 2007, when the banking crisis hit, there was a lot of Qatari, Saudi money came in to prop up the banks. Obviously, a lot of them made a lot of money out of it, but also there's a lot of property in London and throughout the country was bought. A lot of infrastructure was bought by Qataris and Saudis. I think that we can say that's absolutely true. Yeah. So when you've got money, when you're a group of people that are organised and you've got money, you can exert influence. And I think that's what we've got to be aware of. That there's in both the Conservative Party and the Labour Party, there's probably a lot of influence from people that do not have the best interests of the heart, the best interests of the British people at heart. And again, I've got my own views on that, and there's a lot more that we could dig into. And a friend of mine did a lot of work on this. I'll not say his name, but a friend of mine did a lot of work on this a few years ago. And when you look at the influence there is over the UK from certain factions that would not be very friendly to the UK, including the Chinese, as well as people from the Middle East, it goes to explain a lot of the stuff that's going on. Yeah. So, and that's not a conspiracy theory; that's a fact. So I think, I've never heard of what he was saying, and I don't know if it's true. And again, look, the reality is this is an open. We gave that guy a video. It doesn't mean we've fact checked it. It just means that he's expressing his opinion on Paul's channel. Yeah,
and that's what it's about. I mean, look, guys, if you want to express your opinion, I mean, obviously, as long as they're within the realms of the law. Epic 2000, thank you. I like this one. We should seek to shape reform. Sooner we can get up to bring numbers and flex our muscles, the better. Even better if there was a viable alternative to reform that we could play them off against. And I think that's what Richard is saying with UKIP, Nina Vanava. I'll rather have Nigel, even though I'm no fan of his, than that Hitler Starmer. God bless. I mean, that's my philosophy. Jack Wobbly, anti-speech. Ant-speech was fantastic. Majority of what he said, I've heard from Tommy and the speakers on the 1st and the 27th. Wouldn't it be great to have Ant speak?
It would actually. That would be
the
really
26th. Now, it would, but here's the deal. I bet he's not allowed.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna keep the counsel on that one, but the reality is.
Thank you, Adam.
Is that there is no reason why Ant Middleton shouldn't be allowed to come and speak on our platform if he wants to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maggie O'Brien says, "What are you on? Stop it! Will you stop squabbling, please?"
listen. This is called good, healthy debate. We can't all be loving, hugging each other and having a love in every single live stream.
I mean, look, let me just go back to that. Maggie, I don't know if you've popped on late or anything. What we were saying is that, look, Richard and I have slightly different views on reform. I'm more of a supporter than Richard. That doesn't mean to say that I'm necessarily a supporter or a fan of Nigel. I would much prefer, I would give my right arm to have Nigel in power right now than 2-tier, 3-gear Kia, right? But I think he has to learn to read the room better, personally. And the room, I say it again for the third or fourth time tonight, the room does not or cannot rely on disgruntled Middle England, middle-aged Tories. There's not enough of them.
The one of the guys in the comments just he's just given me a superhero name. Reality Richard strikes again. I like that one.
Defender 1968, thanks, mate. We have just over 4 years to stop Labour or it's game over. And nothing will matter. Back Reform to get power back. They are the only party in a position to contest Labour. Thrash this out after a win. Look, I agree, but will we get the win? We might not get the win if we don't thrash it out before.
There won't, if we don't get this sorted. And look, listen. My gut is I've totally given up on Reform. They didn't honour anything that they promised to honour before the election, and I'm done with them, to be honest with you. Unless they've got to move. We've done everything we can. We've all reached out to them. We've all done lives with them. We've had discussions with them in the background, and nothing's been reciprocated. So as far as I'm concerned, they're not an honest broker. They're not straight players, and I don't want anything to do with them unless they change. That's my absolute opinion. They need to change. We're the ones that have reached out, and they have rebuffed us. And there's only so many times you can actually go and try and smooch with your lover before you get a restraining order. Let's just get it right. If we keep reaching out to Reform, we'll end up getting tagged. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with that. I want to give them more chances, and I'll tell you why I want to give them more chances, because I do feel that they are our best chance. Donna, thank you very much. I support Reform 100%, and Phil Richard does not support Reform. Donna, I think you've just heard Richard's feelings. I'm going to say that we need to unite. We need to work with people. I have always been there potentially as a middleman to get in between people. I've tried to bring people together. We've had some success with that. We've had some great success with that. We've also had some disappointments with that. But we must continue to talk. My belief, we need to unite. We need to unite all elements from the centre-right to win the next general election. But we can only do so much. Mickey Ritchie, thank you very much. Hi guys, the way I see things, there's two Tommies, an old one and a new one, and Nigel and others must refuse to recognise the new one, which in my book is bad judgment on Reform's behalf. Why do you think that is? Keep up. Why do you think that is? Keep up your good work. Thank you very much. Well, I think. Go on, Richard. You answer that.
I just want to jump in. I mean, what that guy says is absolutely right. I think I might know Mickey if it's a Mickey I'm thinking of. So if it is, hi Mickey. But the reality is that I cannot join the Reform Party.
Neither can I. Neither can I.
Yeah, well, there you go. So Paul? Listen, this is the thing that really, really annoys me. Even if I wanted to support Reform, I couldn't. Why would I support a party that sees me as persona non grata, as a right-wing extremist, because I joined a party that has exactly the same policies as them, just because Nigel doesn't like Anne-Marie? That's just the way it is. I mean, that's just a fact.
Richard, I agree, but my belief is that we need to be bigger than that. We need to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is our country, and I believe that our country is more important than our own personal beliefs. Look, I can honestly say that
how can you support a party that's deliberately excluding its core base? It's insane. It's absolute. Now, okay, I get why they did it with the BNP, right, and the National Front. As far as I know, at the beginning, they were the only two organisations that UKIP prescribed, the BNP and the National Front. I think they prescribed the EDL at some point as well. But to prescribe for Britain, and and I don't know if there's others are on the list. Maybe it's Britain First, something like that. But to prescribe for Britain, when For Britain was attacked far more by the far right than Farage has ever been, and let's get it right, there was a whole lot of people that stood in the last election for Farage that had absolutely abhorrent views that I certainly wouldn't share. They were homophobic, they were racist, and they stood as candidates in the last election for him.
Yeah, I think to be fair, they recognise that and they're lying that out. Colin Swinney, thank you very much. Colin again, thank you. Maggie is back again. Thank you, Maggie. FFS, you are on record as saying the left unite. We need to. I agree. We need to now. Absolutely.
So do I. I agree.
Division. The Shires want to know who to vote for. Tommy is not a politician. He's an activist. Maggie, I agree. I agree with what you're saying there. But the point is, I think maybe you might be missing, maybe you're not. But I think our point is this, is that behind that activist is 1 million, 2 million, 5 million working class people whose vote will be influenced by whatever he says. And he also represents so many of the working class people's fears, genuine fears, and is the only one that's been big enough and man enough to stand up and speak about those fears. So what we're saying is, Maggie, and what I've said all along, I can't speak for anyone else, not even Richard. My view is that reform needs to do an under the table deal, if you like, almost. I've used this analogy before. Look, the biggest football clubs in Italy, sometimes they can't even sign a player without going to their fans and saying, are you happy with this? What do you think, lads? And if the fans are utterly opposed to signing that footballer, the club will go back to the board and they'll go, do you know what? We've had a word with the fan base and they don't reckon this guy. That's the way that I believe reform should work. They should be speaking, even if it's covertly. They should be holding out a hand, Maggie, is my belief. But the rest of it, Maggie, I agree with you. We do need to unite. Yes, I am on record as saying the left unite and we need to. That's the whole point of us being here. It's all about uniting. Reform are not my enemy. I consider reform to be the answer, hopefully, to our prayers. But things have to change. And I'll go back and say it again. They'd make a bloody good start by reinstating Ben Habib.
Yeah, and I mean, again, Paul, listen, guys, we've had these discussions offline, and what we're saying online is nothing different to what we're saying offline. And it's good to thrash this out and work out why we think what we think and why we're taking the positions that we're taking. And that you can only get that through talking, and that's one of the reasons that this crazy clampdown on freedom of speech is so dangerous. That's been going on. Exactly. But I think where me and Paul are absolutely united is on the pledge. It's as simple as that.
100%.
And I could guarantee I could go to everybody in that auditorium on Friday and Saturday and take them a copy of the pledge and everyone sign it. Every single one of them.
Let me give you another. Richard, can I give you another one of my silly football analogies?
Yeah, go for it, man. Yeah.
We're all on the same side. We all support the same team. We're just talking about who should be playing in midfield and up front. That's it. We all want the same team to win. We're just debating about the players and what positions they should be playing in.
It's about winning the game. It's as simple as that. And I think I've been doing this for a long time. And I've never felt as enthusiastic as I do now, because I think we're on the verge of something massive. And I think if we use UKIP as a tool to basically bring Nigel to heel, then that's worth joining UKIP for. But the biggest
the pledge job for me.
That's what I was going to say, Paul. The biggest weapon we've got in the arsenal is the pledge. Now, but I also do believe that there's a lot of mileage in UKIP. I know Nick Tenconi, the leader of UKIP. He's a great guy. He's full of energy. He would share our beliefs wholeheartedly. He is totally against the far right, the real far right, the ethno-nationalists and the Nazis. He's totally against that. He's totally against extremism from the left and against extremism from Islamists. So, he's 100% on board. And he's the leader of UKIP. And I'm going, well, okay, they might not have the support now, But we don't know what's going to happen with reform. We don't know what's going to happen with anything. Look how much things have changed in a year, you know, in terms of politics. So we don't know what's going to happen next week. And they say a week's a long time in politics. It's even longer in this day and age. So 4 years is a very long time in politics, and a lot can happen. So I think we need to hedge our bets, and we need to have as many players on the field as we're going to talk about football. We need to have a very strong bench. You know, we need strength and depth.
A strong squad.
We need a strong squad, because if reform fall over, basically what we need to do is to field.
Bring on the sub. Yeah. David says, if Farage doesn't like TR, so be it, but stop throwing him under a bus. Exactly.
Yeah.
Stop the snobbery, or support will dwindle. 4 years is a long time. Richard Hines.
I was just to say, but I'm looking at the comments, and half of them are digging Farage out, and half of them are digging me out. So you and Tommy are getting a free ride in this one. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm not quite. Look, Richard Hines says, I'm a big fan of what you're both doing, but this Nigel and TR thing needs to drop in. You're not helping unite anyone. Far easier for you to big up Nigel than Nigel big up TR. Look, Richard, this is the deal. I cannot big up someone who, for me, has not delivered.
I agree.
I cannot do that. I've always want to be honest with my audience. I don't want to lie. I've already told you that the most important thing to me here is that we win our country back. And if Nigel Farage enables us to do that, brilliant. I'm all for it. However, I do not believe for about the 10th time this evening that Nigel Farage and Reform can win a general election with disgruntled Tories. How many more times have I got to say it? Because if we look at that Reform conference, 4,000 white, mostly white, 4,000 predominantly white, middle-class people from Middle England. There would have been a sprinkling of working class people in there, of course, but these were mostly Mr. and Mrs. Jones from a nice avenue somewhere in a lovely village somewhere. What about the working class people, the hundreds of thousands, the millions that are potentially we could lose? And that is a huge danger.
If we don't get rid of this Labour government at the next election, the country is finished.
Thank you, Richard, by the way. Epic 2000, we need more women YouTubers in the movement, yes. Also, the audience at the Reform Conference was a sea of grey hair. Exactly.
That's the problem.
We have to engage the youngsters. Epic 2000, a brilliant comment. Not only was it a sea of Middle England, it was a sea of grey hair.
There's one popped up there, Paul. I don't know if you saw it. It says something about...
That's why I didn't go, Richard. I didn't want the salt and pepper to spoil the optics, you know. Helitron, get the answer from the horse's mouth. Lawrence Fox worked with Nigel and is a colleague, friend. I've lost a little faith in Reform over what they did to Ben Habib. Carla, thank you very much. UKIP was my only vote. Reform are showing way too many red flags for me. They have a lot of people, good people, but with Farage and Tice, it's leading to red flags. Van der Fulks, thank you so much. I'm sick to death. I'm sick to the back teeth of Reform snobbery. How dare they, Richard Tice on Dan Wootton, had me screaming with rage about Tommy's supporters. They will lose thousands of votes regardless. I'm fuming, stuck up plums. Now, I go back, thank you, Vander. I go back here. I want to go back for a minute to Richard's comment. Richard, this is a dilemma that we face. I tend to agree with much of what you say, but there you must understand that there are hundreds of thousands of people like Vander out there who feel differently. Nigel can win over everyone if he just uses his noddle. And right now, I'm sorry, he's not using his noddle. Posh accents and fancy levels of education does not equal common sense.
No, it doesn't.
Colin Sweeney, thank you. Reform have banned any Tommy supporter being part of any branch of the setup.
Exactly.
My candidate announced it tonight. Not great. Contentious comments from Alan. Contentious comments better not said by Farage unless method in madness for same goal. Lightweight flags from NW flags and telescope polls from arrived today. Yep, looking forward to the 26th. Thank you.
Good to see you, Alan. Good to see you.
Maggie says she's had enough of the bitching. Sorry, catch you later. Thank you, Maggie. Really appreciate it. We're not bitching, Maggie. We're having a chat amongst friends.
Let's just switch this onto the pledge. I mean, the pledge tonight, slow down a little bit there. We've 1,200 sign-ups tonight on this live.
Brilliant. Absolutely
now,
amazing.
How many people are watching now, Paul? How many have we got?
4,635.
Okay. So we've still got 2,800 or something to sign up. So come on, guys, get on there and start signing it, because that's
well, a lot of them will already be signed up, guys. The website address is run at the bottom of the page. What you will be doing by joining the pledge and by signing the pledge is joining a family that truly cares. Let me play this little video that come up.
Just about the pledge before I forget. The reality is signing the pledge does away with these arguments. It really does, because when we get that critical mass of people, we're just going to very simply present the pledge to all these political parties. And if we have 10 million people in the pledge and we go to these political parties and they say, yeah, we'll sign up to that, job done. As long as we know for a fact, so we need to get something in writing from the party leaders that they were going to honor the agreement. But, that's how powerful this is, guys. It's really powerful. And like I say, we can have these debates about which party, what party, Reform, UKIP, but the reality is the pledge is where it's at.
Cheers, Phil. Let me just play this little positive one.
Hello, Paul. Sorry about my previous message. I've managed to work out how it works. I'm Rob, and I live in Shoreham-by-Sea, so I'm quite local to you. I love your show. I love all your comments and videos that you've done. It's very refreshing to hear a gentleman like you having such positive ideas. Thank you. Please feel free to use this video in your shows. Good luck to you, sir. Take care.
Oh, that was nice, wasn't it? Notice he never mentioned you, Rich. He never mentioned you.
I'm just a bad boy, mate. I'm the one that you weren't allowed to hang about with when you were a kid.
Guys, the reason I'm playing those videos is because there is a number in the video description. If you want to send me your video or audio messages only for the show, and the best ones will be played in a future show. Phil's going to remember. Thank you very much. Betty Boo, 1972. What were you doing? About 30 then, Rich, in 1972, something like that. I'm 51 years old and a nurse. I support Tommy 100%. I want support. I want to support reform, but I can't if they don't back Tommy. Yeah. Now, look, again, I say to all those out there that think we're having a go at Farage and we're not. I am certainly not. I don't know how much clearer I can make it, but there are millions of people out there that feel like Betty. And if we want to win the next general election, reform have to rethink their strategy and, more importantly, like Richard Tice this afternoon, maybe just engage their brain before they engage their mouth. It might be useful and it might serve them well. Donna, thank you very much, Donna. I've told loads about the 26th, as a lot of people are not on YouTube. And sorry, Richard is negative. Poor old Richard. I'm going to have to buy you a virtual drink after this, mate.
No, it's all right, mate. Don't worry about it.
Nothing but the truth. Muslims are using their religion against us in the street and in a court of law. They are professional liars, learn everything before they get on. Well, look, listen, I'm not going to get too involved with that one, to be fair. Look, I think there's good and bad in everyone, and we have to try and find the good in people. Look, as far as I'm concerned, everyone is welcome on board with this movement as long as they have red, white and blue in their heart. The rest I'm not too worried about. Jasper Pudding Face. Janine here. I cancelled my Labour membership after a long membership spanning many years after heating allowance cut. I've just had a renew membership request. Are they panicking? Well, probably because they want money from just about anyone and everyone.
Exactly.
Maggie O'Brien, Maggie, I'm glad you're still with us. Labour can sing Red Flag and celebrate, but Right can't sing at the proms. There you go. Betty, she's back. Thank you, Betty. I want to support reform, but how can I when they throw Tommy under a bus? He's done more for the UK than anyone. I'm a nurse and support Tommy 100%, as a lot of others do. Darren, guys, we need to get the church involved in this. There's a massive community at our fingertips. We just need a rallying point. The pledge is key. Well done to you all. The pledge is key. David Crosby, Ben Habib for next PM. Up your bum and Farage. I agree that Ben should definitely be back in reform. We've got to keep pushing to get Ben back in reform for me. Dave Young, thank you. Evening. Would TR come onto this stream? I'm sure that if we asked Tommy, he would. But the bottom line is, well, you tell him, Richard.
Well, he's got a lot on. I mean, the reality is he's fighting. Well, I'm not going to go into it, but he's fighting fires on all front. He is, to be honest with you, how he does what he does with the pressure he's under, I honestly don't know. So, it's he's. And I know he's got a lot on in the next few weeks anyway. So I'm not going to say any more than that. But he's busy.
Good over evil. Thank you very much. People just voted for the best option. Disaster. Yeah. Douglas Whitrick. I can't quite work this one out. Can you, Richard? Have booklet or 3 PDFs, but they get caught in the too busy file 13 section you guys have.
Don't know what that means.
Not quite sure what you mean, Douglas, but thank you anyway. Carla, I'll back UKIP. We need to unite. I'll stand by TR. Too many with reform, I worry. Vanda, again, she says, I'm fuming with reforms, Richard Tyson, Dan Wootton. Without Tommy's following, they will lose thousands of support. It's total snobbery. I thought I read that one out, actually, but thank you, Vanda. Yorkshire Tea, thank you. Richard Nigel only said he likes the way Lib Dems do their local campaigns, not that he likes them per se. Yeah, I get that.
No, we know that. Yeah, I mean, I said it on a video. He wants to copy the Lib Dems, but he obviously doesn't mind the Lib Dems to a certain extent in terms of getting 72 seats with however many votes they got. But this is the point, actually, Paul. I made this point on the stream before the election, and again, people told me I didn't know what I was talking about. But the point is, it's about voter management. If you manage your votes properly, so in other words, you maximize the vote in certain areas and probably neglect other areas because you're never going to win the seat anyway. That's what grown-up political parties do, and that's what Lib Dems do. It happens in Northern Ireland with the DUP and Sinn Féin. They know how to manage the vote.
Yeah. Steve Edwards, how many signatures does the pledge have so far? I don't think we're saying yet, Rich, are we? But it's many thousands.
On this stream tonight, we've had 1,200 people signed up, which is, I think it works out about 15 people signing up a minute at the minute, which is fantastic. I mean,
let me get through some more of the supers. Asterix, thank you. I think we need to see how the land lies after the 26th and what happens on the other side of the pond. That's a good point. Julie Blackman, thank you. Bring back Ben, says Mags, into the fold. Lee Anderson should back Tommy. He's on our wavelength. Sign the pledge, guys. Thank you so much, Mags. Robin Ball, no more supers tonight now, guys. Thank you so much. We are heading towards the latter part of the show. I believe, Robin says, I believe reform is very immature, therefore malleable. The challenge seems to be finding a way to get through to them. James McMurdoch MP takes the trouble to research details. A good point there. And that is that the problem is trying to get through to them.
I've got an idea on that, Paul. It's very simple, actually. You email the party, you email Reform and say, look, we want this ostracization of people associated with Tommy Robinson himself to end. You just email the party en masse. So if they get I don't know, 20,000 emails, in a day. As we know from our site, if you get loads of traffic in a day, it makes your site fall over. So the reality is that if you get, if they get loads and loads of emails from genuine people saying we want this sorted out, that'll make a difference. If they get written letters, that'll make a difference. Phone your local MP. If you got a Reform MP, phone them. Phone Nigel or whoever.
I think I'll let Richard answer this one. KG Tiggs, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We need to find a mediator, a bridge to speak, discuss the Tommy Nigel issue, maybe Douglas Murray. I think you can answer that one, Richard.
Well, yes, possibly, because I know, what can I say without giving confidence away? Yeah, I mean, all of those guys are moving in the same circles. Let's just put it that way. So the reality is contact could be made for sure. But I think the problem, and guys, I'm sorry to say this, but the problem that we got is with Nigel. He refuses. And this is why I'm getting irate when I'm getting loads of stick in the chat. I'm not the one that's causing division here. It's numpty Nigel and his mates in the party. They're just not letting them, they're not playing ball with this at all. And I know why they're not doing it. I get it. But Nigel's got to realize that, like Trump realized very early on when he was standing in America that he wasn't going to win an election by trying to make Democrats and the left in America his friends. He's going to win an election by motivating and getting his base out and getting more than his base out and finding a way of getting the American working class out. And that's how he won the election in 2016. So, Nigel's got to realize that we are potentially his best friends, but he's deliberately making us an enemy. It's crazy. It's crazy, and it's not right. And
I think let's think about what you just said then, because I think that's very apt. I think it's you've hit the nail on the head there. We are Nigel's best friends, and I'll rephrase that a little bit more delicately than you did. We are Nigel's best friends, but he just can't see it yet.
Well, I mean, I'm not a beg, Paul, right? I'm not his best friend, okay? Because he has rejected us since 2018 and belittled us. He is like an abusive boyfriend. He really is. I mean, he's not being a nice guy. He's not playing ball. So as far as I'm concerned, he's got to make the move now. And we've tried, and he's not playing. So he's got to move because we've done it. We got in goodness knows how many votes in that last election. 2 million votes. I don't know, between all of us.
Probably. I don't know what he's afraid of now, because the media are already going after him.
Yeah.
They're going after him big time, and it's going to get worse. So he is going to have to become Britain's Donald Trump.
Well, if he doesn't, he's finished.
And I don't think he can do it anywhere else, any other way. And I think that there are definitely people out there that will disagree with that and say, no, we're not like the Americans. We have a lower sort of political pain threshold, etc. And that may well be true. But I just don't feel there's enough people in Middle England that he can attract to win a general election. No. And here's the thing: Labour have all of the unions behind them. Where is Nigel Farage's unions? I'll tell you where they are. Trafalgar Square.
I'll tell you where else they are, Paul. In the pledge. That's where they are.
In the pledge.
And that's where. Now we're never going to get 10 million people in Trafalgar Square. Logistically, it's impossible. But we could get 10 million people on the pledge.
Yeah.
And this is where me and you are absolutely in lockstep, Paul. We disagree on reform. At the end of the day, once bitten, twice shy. Well, 3-4 times bitten, twice shy. But the reality is, the pledge is the solution, because if you have a critical mass of genuine people signing that, and you can take that to a politician and say, we've got X amount of numbers in this, and that's where that's at. And I think that we've so many plans of what we can do with the pledge. So
it's mega. I mean, look at Epic 2000. If we had 5 million on the pledge and asked for £3 a month each, we could easily influence parties. Imagine. I mean, look, we have no financial ambitions here whatsoever, but I think the message that you're saying is right in the respect that if we have 5 million people, and there is one thing that the left have an advantage on us, and we must understand this, because money is always a very, very, very touchy subject. But the left bus thousands of people in to demonstrations, to whatever, to events when at the drop of a hat, at the click of a finger, and they can do that because they're well funded. So look, we do need to get together. We do need to organise. There's so much going on behind the scenes with the place that it's just unbelievably, mind-bogglingly exciting and positive. Right now, all we're asking people to do is sign up for free.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the signing up to the pledge will always be free. Always. We're never going to ask anyone for money to sign that. That's the beauty of it. It costs you nothing. It costs you 20 seconds of your time. We want you to read it, and then we want you to sign it. And I honestly, like I say, no right-thinking person could refuse to sign that pledge, because it's so middle of the road. It's so centrist. It's perfect for what our country needs. It is the solution to the political and the social problems. And, you know, once we've got that critical mass, Paul, you know, then these discussions become immaterial, because believe you me, Nigel will be beating the path to our door if we've got 10 million people signed up on that document.
Yeah.
He'd be a fool not to.
Heltram, I think I've already answered this one, but I'll read it out. Thank you. How many signatures on the place so far? Just signed it. Many, many thousands, but we are keeping those figures to ourselves for a moment for a very good reason that will become obvious in the future. Nosy Poke, Paul and Richard, have you ever read the British Nationality Act of 1981 to see what your lovely Brit establishment have done to the English indigenous people? I personally haven't read it. I must be honest with you. Maybe I should.
Yeah, I think we can see what's happening to the British people. I mean, you know, it's dreadful. I mean, you know, and this is the big picture here, Paul. You were talking about earlier on the amount of people that are coming into this country illegally, and the fact that you can hardly even talk about that now without being called racist, something ridiculous. When has it ever been right for people to break into your house and come and sit in your living room and then demand money from you, which is what's happening with people that are coming to this country illegally? And I've always said, you know, we've nothing against genuine refugees. We've always all said that. People that are coming from places that,
especially women and children.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, one of the most persecuted sects in the world is Christians. And there's lots of Christians in the Middle East that can't get into our country because our country is swamped with illegals. And actually, during the crisis in 2015, there were very, very, there were totally verified reports that Christians on some of those boats coming across the Mediterranean were thrown overboard by Islamists and drowned.
Did you say that's verified or unverified?
Verified, 100% verified. Yeah, 100% verified. So the reality is that, you know, there are genuine refugees out there, and we've never ever said that we don't want them coming. And the other thing is, when I was doing the work with in Sierra Leone, most of the people in Sierra Leone, this was just after the Civil War, the country was still in chaos. Most of the people that I was working with were patriotic to their country. They didn't want to leave. They wanted to rebuild their country. Right? Now, why are these young men coming to this country? Should they not be staying in their own country and doing their best to rebuild it? Or if there's a civil war going on, to actually fight for what's right in their country? Because as old as I am, if this country descended into civil war or some national catastrophe, I'd like to think I'd stand up and say, what can I do to help? So why are they fleeing their countries? You know, so again, there's a lot of really serious questions that we can't even ask, and are being totally, you know, caught up in the weeds because we're discussing this thing with Nigel, you know, being pig-headed about Tommy and the movement. It's the answer is the pledge. The reality is that once that's got a critical mass, then all political parties will have to say, okay, we've got to listen to these guys and see what they actually believe.
Exactly. Richard, look, we're going to pretty much not bring it to an end just yet, but look at this, Claire Bear. Look, thank you. We all love you, Richard. Don't be sad. E-Sightseeing UK has sent me in a super chat. Thank you very much for that, mate, but I cannot read that out. You'll get myself and you'll get me. Will get me and you into trouble. Warhawk says Nigel knows what he's doing. Well, if he does know what he's doing, then I'll be surprised, quite honestly, because if he knows what he's doing, is upsetting a lot of people at the moment.
So that's an even bigger problem, isn't it?
Yeah, if he knows what he's doing, we do have a problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have a little look, run through one of these in the regular chat. Thank you so much. I will go through these tomorrow during the day. There you go, Nigel again. Nigel isn't a disgrace. Leave him alone. I never said he was a disgrace.
I didn't either.
But actually, I will say this: what he said about us in the past is disgraceful, and it is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it is. That doesn't mean to say I wouldn't vote for his party. Right, guys, I think we are at an end there tonight, Richard. But there's some many topics that we've got to cover in the next few weeks, in the coming days. Guys, like I said, you can now send me your video messages, your audio WhatsApp messages through WhatsApp. The number's in the video link below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. The upvote button is free to hit. If you want to join the channel and become a member, that would also be really appreciated. Have I missed anything, Richard?
No,
sign up to the pledge.
The main thing is sign the pledge and share it with as many. Share the pledge with everybody in your inbox. And now we did have some technical issues last week. We're 99.9% sure that they're completely ironed out now. But get it out there, share it. If for whatever reason you can't sign up, let us know, because we do want that feedback. But you know, the amount of signups we've had, even with the technical issues we had last week, is off the chart. So let's keep pushing this.
Well, the sheer weight of numbers on the first day simply brought the site down, didn't it? If we're honest,
it was crazy. It was crazy. And you know, if that was in the first week, Paul, what's it going to be like in 3 weeks' time? It's going to be something else. Yeah,
exactly. Right, absolutely. Listen, guys, if you've enjoyed the show tonight, I really appreciate it. Just for being here, I really appreciate it. We're fully aware, both Richard and me. I mean, look, even me and Richard haven't agreed on everything tonight.
No.
But it makes for an interesting debate. Ultimately, we're all on the same side.
Here's the thing, though, Paul. Right, we haven't agreed, right? But we're not going to go away from this stream tonight and go, oh, well, I'm not talking to Richard, I'm not talking to Paul, because we're adults. And in our world, you know, when we were growing up, you could have these debates about politics, about religion. You could really go at each other. And at the end of the, you know, you have a few beers or whatever. At the end of the night, you'd sit there and go, do you know what? We're still best mates, but we just disagree on this issue. You know, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I think that the message to everyone is that, look, this isn't, you know, like I said earlier on, this isn't about knocking anyone. This isn't about separating anyone. This is having a discussion between family members where hopefully we can get things right, unite as a family, and win that next general election, get rid of this evil, horrible lot that are currently residing in number 10. And that, I think, we can all agree on.
Yeah, and the other thing is, make your plans for the 26th of October.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Make your plans for the 26th.
It's looking like it's going to be massive. It's going to be, by the sounds of it, if everyone's telling the truth, it's going to be as big as Trafalgar Square. So I don't know where we're all going to go, but it's going to be busy. It's going to be busy. And, you know, so just get to London for the 26th, and we'll see you all there.
And don't forget, guys, if you want to catch up with me, if you've not had enough of me this week, you can go and see me this week on Peter Will's channel. That video has been released today. That's getting good reviews. You can see my video with the one and only Andrew Bridgen. Look, guys, the names are getting bigger on this channel, and they will get bigger and bigger. We are working very hard in the background. I think Richard can attest to that. We're doing our best for you. We're working our absolute socks off.
And we just get more and more of workload as every week goes on, Paul. We, you know, every meeting we have, we've got more work to do.
It's funny. I'll let you into one thing before we go tonight. We had a team meet before the live. We had a team meet, and at the end of the video, at the end of the meet, poor old Richard was lumped with another two pretty crusty jobs that I've got to tell you, I wouldn't wish on my best enemy. But there you go. Look, mate, I said, look, you got nothing to do anyway, right?
Gentlemen of leisure.
God, blimey. Go on, get out of here. Right, guys, we'll see you next time. Have a great rest of the weekend.
You guys, and listen,
Have a safe week, and we'll see you
share the
soon.
pledge, and I hope we're all still mates after that stream. Me and Paul certainly are. If you don't like me, I don't care.
Love to you all. See you later.